On in, I'm going to queue up my slides. And as you just got the notice that this session is being recorded, so we'll have this in our library in case any of you all have to jump off at any time, or if you have someone that knows they want to check this out but was unable to join us today live. But we love when you are live. So just like you are doing now with the chat box, anytime throughout the presentation, be ready with those questions in the chat. We have someone monitoring the chat. And so when we get to the point of asking questions, we'll catch your question as best we can with the time we have. We do have dedicated Q&A time at the end. So official welcome. Hello again. I'm Casey Solari Williams, president of the American School Health Association. I want to welcome you to this co-sponsored webinar with the Society of State Leaders of Health and Physical Education. And we also have the president of the society, as we say for short, Rosemary Riley-Shamat, with us today as well. So you'll hear from her in a moment. But we are here under the topic of the permission to feel. It's the power of emotional intelligence to achieve well-being and success in school and life. And so I'm excited in the next few moments to welcome our presenter, Marc Brackett, to the panel. But before we get going on the business side of everything, let me tell you a little bit about the association if you don't know who we are. The American School Health Association's mission is to transform all schools into places where every student learns and thrives. ASHA, I call it ASHA, some people call it ASHA, ASHA, ASHA. I always say, whatever you call us, just call us your professional home. But we envision healthy students who learn and achieve in safe and healthy environments, and nurtured by caring adults, functioning with coordinated and community support systems. So I am happy to be a member of the association and very privileged and happy to serve as the board president this year. So some member benefits. If you are not a member of the association and are interested in learning more about what it means and what you can gain, some of the things you can gain from being a member, and this is just a snapshot of a few things. You'll have access to our Journal of School Health, JOSH, as the acronym. We love a good acronym, as it's called. And so in JOSH, we have our peer-reviewed, indexed manuscripts, articles, and we have it in print available, but we are encouraging everyone to move online and go green. We were green yesterday for a certain day in March, right? So we want to go green for the earth every day. So please consider the online option and save a couple of leaves and barks and things like that. Then we also have continuing education opportunities, which is what you are experiencing today. So these CEs are free for ASHA members. So there's no charge for that when you're a member. That's one of those member benefits, and we offer them all throughout the year. So it basically, the equivalent of pays for its membership and just those continuing education opportunities. So by all means, join for that, if nothing else, right? But no, there's more. You can get discounts for being a member too. We have a connection with the American Academy of Pediatrics, and they have select publications that are discounted rates for ASHA members, as well as through the Sex Ed Network. And then we also have job postings in our career centers that you have access to as a member. And then just the information expertise of just the latest and greatest and innovative and just creative and welcoming and inspiring people in the field through our annual conference. And I'll just do a quick aside to tell you, we've moved the conference this year. If you're used to going to our conference, if you haven't heard or seen on social media or our website, we moved it from October, which is when we usually have it, into the summer. It's in July this year. So we're excited to be able to welcome in people who may be in the school settings or have a little bit more flexibility in July to be able to attend. And this year it'll still be virtual. We are still going to just continue to keep everyone in mind and differences of feelings and thoughts about travel just yet, because we can't wait to get together in person and to travel together for the conference. But this year we are going to continue with our virtual platform. We've got some new and exciting things. If you attended in 2020, it was a great experience, when we had to pivot and shift, right? But we are definitely excited about the opportunity to move forward into this, continuing this, navigating this space and making it work as much as we possibly can. So thank you for joining us last year if you did. If not, I encourage you and invite you to join us this year in July for 2021. Again, I mentioned this is a second part, actually, to a series brought to you by ASHA and the Society of State Leaders of Health and Physical Education. And we've been talking about this for a while, of trying to get some things together between ASHA and the Society to do things more on the PD side. We already collaborate with each other on many different things, particularly during our annual conference. We work in tandem with the conference every year. So that's an existing partnership and collaboration. But we are so excited, Rosemary, to continue or to bring this series to life, finally to life. We've been talking about it for so long. And so welcome, welcome, welcome. Please share with everyone a little bit about the Society.
Sure. So thank you. And we're thrilled to be partnering with ASHA. And I'm happy to say that I am also a member of ASHA as well as the Society. And it's really an honor to be here representing the Society of State Leaders of Health and Physical Education. The Society was founded in 1926, so almost 100 years old, is a national organization comprised of individuals employed in state and territorial departments of education who have program responsibilities in school health education, physical education, and related areas. So we're really excited to expand the partnership. We had our first webinar on mental health back in February, I think, or into January. And now we're really excited to follow up with part 2. And, mental health, when we surveyed our members, was such an overwhelming need among, everyone. And the pandemic has certainly exacerbated so many health inequities, including mental health, access to social and emotional learning that we already knew existed. And so to be able to have this opportunity to learn from Dr. Brackett, who I see is here. So we're really, really excited to welcome him today. I have had the opportunity to work with Dr. Marc Brackett as part of my own work at the Rhode Island Department of Education. We have a partnership with the Yale Center on Emotional Intelligence. And so it's my pleasure to formally introduce to you Dr. Marc Brackett. He is the founding director of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence and a professor in the Child Study Center at Yale University. His research focuses on the role of emotions and emotional intelligence in learning, decision-making, creativity, relationships, health, in both academic and workplace performance. Marc is the lead developer of Ruler, a pre-K to high school evidence-based whole school approach to social and emotional learning that has been adopted by over 2,000 schools across the United States and in other countries. He has published 125 scholarly articles, received numerous awards, and is on the board of directors for the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, or for those in the field, CASEL. Marc consults regularly with corporations like Facebook, Microsoft, and Google on integrating emotional intelligence principles into employee training and product design, and is co-founder of the OG Life Lab, a digital emotional intelligence learning system for businesses. His research has been featured in popular media outlets such as the New York Times, Good Morning America, The Today Show. Marc is the author of Permission to Feel, Unlocking the Power of Emotions to Help Our Kids, Ourselves, and Our Society Thrive. So without further ado, Dr. Marc Brackett, welcome.
Welcome, Dr. Brackett. I'm going to stop share so that you can now take the wheel.
Thank you. And Thank you, Rosemary. I feel like it's like the end of my career and I'm getting some award from you. or something.
No.
So thank you. Delighted to be here with all of you and excited to talk about this work on emotional intelligence in schools and in terms of mental health, physical health, um, psychological health. And I know that we've got, just remind me, if you don't mind, Rosemary, or is it, how do you pronounce your name? Is it Case?
Casey.
Casey, sorry. Um, do we have people from, is this just East Coast people or we got people from everywhere?
We are literally all coasts and the north and the Midwest. We are touching everywhere. I didn't see the furthest. I know on a previous one we had someone from South America, but not today. I don't see our friend today, but we are literally touching all across the US today.
All right, awesome. Well, that's great. And so I'm just going to share my screen. I decided to talk about the social emotional learning during a pandemic. It's my new title for today. And so again, I want to thank you for inviting me. And I want to start off by saying, Rosemary, excited to work with Rhode Island. We're going to make Rhode Island the second emotionally intelligent state. Connecticut's where I live, and I gotta, you gotta do what's close to home first. But New York is now wanting competition. I just got off the phone with people from Massachusetts, so we're gonna have like a battle, good battle to have, right? So let me ask everyone, while we're here together, to just take a nice long inhale and an exhale. It's Thursday. I think if we were still in college, it would be like drinking night or something. Not the best strategy, but one that people do use. And I'm going to start off with a quote. And once the storm is over, you won't remember how you made it through, how you managed to survive. You won't even be sure whether the storm is really over. But one thing is certain. When you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. And that's by Haruki Murakami. So I'm going to ask all of you, I like as much as possible to have active participation in these presentations. So can we just take a moment and reflect on, it's been a year over the last 2 weeks that most of us have been in this pandemic. And well, all of us have been in the pandemic for a year. It's been a year since many of us have been in quarantine, isolation, hybrid learning, whatever work you're in. So what's been your learning? You're not going to be the same person. I know that for sure. I know I'm not the same person. So everyone, now's the time to just let it all out. What would you say? When you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. What's your big pearl from this pandemic? I saw that. Can you hear me okay? Rosemary and Casey, can you guys hear me okay? Okay,
I can hear you, yes.
great, thank you.
Yes, you spoke up a little bit and it was really good. Yes.
I'm going to use my outside voice. We've learned to be really resourceful, patience and gratitude. Don't need to go all the time. Home is pretty nice. Yeah, you're not kidding. I'm becoming a homebody myself. I'm a little nervous about that. Word of the year is resilient. Learn to slow down. More connected to my family. How important relationships are. Mindfulness. Support from friends and family. Been isolated. Thank you for sharing that, Lisa. Trying to acknowledge the beauty. Let go. You're happy to be alone with yourself. That's a nice thing. It's hard to be alone with yourself. I don't know about you, but when I'm alone for too long, I just ruminate and ruminate and ruminate. I'm like, getting outside. Thank you for sharing all of that. And so, you know, it's cliche, but they say with every crisis, there is an opportunity. And I try as much as I possibly can in my work to come at it from a post-traumatic growth mindset as opposed to the other way of thinking about it. And my hope is that I can teach you a little bit about our center's work, the work we've now done in 3,000 schools across the United States and in other countries. I'm proud to say that Ruler now is in about 10 different countries, from Australia to China to Mexico to Spain to Italy, all places that I would not mind visiting right now, to be honest. Podemos hacer todo el entrenamiento en español. We can do the whole thing in Spanish too. So we can all go to Mexico or Spain together. All right, I'm getting distracted now. Now I'm thinking about going away. So one of the first tools you'll learn if you read my book, get involved in our center's work, it's called the mood meter, el medidor emocional. So all of us have feelings. From the moment we wake up in the morning till the time we go to bed at night. Whether you want them or not, they're with you. On the x-axis, it says the word pleasantness. Pleasantness has to do with what's going on in your brain right now. So you wake up in the morning and your brain says, you look outside, sunny out, you have good thoughts. Oh, today's going to be a good day. You look outside, it's raining. You start thinking about all the things that are wrong with your life or your work. And you're like, ugh, today's not going to be a good day. We're doing that all the time. We're doing that internally. We're also doing it in our freaking Zoom meetings when we're looking at everybody's facial expressions and we're like, okay, nobody's interested in my presentation right now. That's not pleasant. That's unpleasant. Or, oh my goodness, I got a smile. Yes, people are listening. That's good. I want to approach that. On the y-axis, it says energy. Energy literally is your battery. Is your battery full or is it empty? Do you feel like you're energized or do you feel like you're depleted? So everyone, take a moment, please, and share with me. What is your feeling color? What quadrant are you in today? Yellow, red, blue, or green? On the count of one, we're just going to be honest. 3, 2, 1. What's your color? Blue, green, green, yellow. So remember, yellow is high energy and pleasant. Green, low energy, but still pleasant. Red and blue. Unpleasant, not bad. Unpleasant, high or low in energy. Got blues and greens and green and yellow. Light green, blue, green, green, orange, green. Okay. Next question for all of you. Convert your color to the precise feeling word. Like, what's your feeling word right now? You got 3 seconds. 2, 1. Tired, content, attentive, enthusiasm, tired people. Rosemary, there's 4 o'clock presentation time. Like, can we change that next time, please? Grateful, drained, even getting better. We're going tired to drained. Restless. Got some coffee. It's all right, Henry. You're allowed to have coffee at 4 o'clock. You're going to be up all night, but whatever. It's your problem. Curious, melancholy, exhausted. Okay. So right now I'm your teacher because I'm the one talking, and I've got 90 something people on this line, and like any classroom, like any office space, I've got people who are feeling all kinds of feelings in front of me. Does this resonate with you? Like when you're working, like everybody who's in your office is coming in with feelings. Some people are yellow, some people are green, some people are blue, some people are red. And what do you do as a manager or as a leader or as a teacher with all those feelings? Well, first, let me ask you another question. How many of you had some trouble? I like that, Kent. You're learning quickly. You just show them the chart. It's the mood meter, not the chart. So firstly, my big question for all of you is, how many of you found it like a little difficult to find the precise word? Give me a thumbs up, right? Give me a hand raise in if you had trouble, if you found that like, not 100% certain for my word. Anyone? What do you think? Give me a yes, no in the chat if you found like precise word, a little bit harder than I might have thought. No, yes, 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 yes. Hard to find the word. Okay, so it's mixed. Hard to find. Any hypotheses around that? I mean, we're all educated people. Oh, Carrie's like, I would have just said meh, but that's not like, what is that, right? We're gonna get granular. EQ is not the same as IQ. Emotions aren't simple. I mean, how many of us have had a sophisticated emotion education? Could have put words to your emotions, Ramona. It's very common. Because what do we say? I'm going to ask Rosemary, you want to be my partner for a minute?
Sure.
All right, Rosemary, ask me how I'm feeling.
Mark, how are you feeling?
Fine.
Can you say a little more about that?
Right, it took you a little bit like, what am I going to do with that? All right, Rosemary, ask me again.
Mark, how are you feeling?
Hi, Rosemary. It's like this odd mixture of anxiety, frustration, overwhelm, and despair.
I'm so sorry to hear that. What's going on?
Oh, you've gone to a few trainings. So, but like, think about that, right? Aren't we just used to saying fine, okay, or busy? You know, what are the expectations, right? When, if I say, Rosemary, how are you feeling?
Okay.
Great. All right. Now I can go to work. Or if I'm a teacher, I can go teach my class. Or if I'm a parent, I can say, great, get on the bus, kiddo, and I'm going to go to work. There's nothing to do, right? Um, now, your child says to you they're feeling fear or despair or anger. And all of a sudden, right now we have to be a listener. We have to be a co-problem solver. We have to provide unconditional support and validation, and the list goes on. So anybody agree with me that we've kind of become a nation that's like phobic of even asking people how they're feeling? When I notice people just say, how's it going? Right? We don't even say that. We don't say, how are you feeling? We say, how's it going? What's up? Nothing. Good. Thank God you said nothing. So next question. We're here until 10 tonight. Am I right, Rosemary? I think we're here until when? How much time do we have?
This is an hour. Well, I left some time in for Q&A at the end. So I say another 30-ish minutes.
30 minutes. Oh my goodness, I don't have time for that. 30 minutes. I thought we had at least 2 hours. All right, whatever. I'll get over it. Now, for some of you, you're thinking to yourself, I don't know if I can take this guy for more than another 5 minutes. Some of you are like, I want to go till 10 p.m. But my big question for you is, what's your strategy? How many of you, a lot of you said tired, exhausted. Some of you got your coffee, so you use drugs to regulate. What are your other strategies to get the most out of this presentation? When you notice yourself going from tired to exhausted, when you're getting hungry, when your kids are screaming, when you're getting text messages and you have the urge to go on Instagram. So Carrie's going to stand up and stretch. Deep breathing. Take away. Lynn is double dipping, which is really cool. Listen to what I have to say that's different. Grateful for the small things. Has anyone here worked with a child or another adult that has had like a meltdown during the pandemic? Anyone? Or you yourself have had a meltdown? And so you're working with that kid who's having a meltdown. You say, well, I just went to this whole workshop on emotional intelligence with this guy, Marc Brackett. And here's what I'm going to recommend. Like, I know you're freaking out right now. Just, just, just take a deep breath. And if that doesn't work, get on your bicycle. All right. No, that's not going to work. Can you just be grateful for the small things in life? Just sit with your emotion. All right. If that doesn't work, just go drink some water. It's very clarifying. Now, the people who share that are like, I can't stand this guy now. But what do you think? What do you think about those strategies? They work minus the water. Hey, hydration is important, actually. Thanks for reminding me. We need lots of tools. I like that, Millie. All right, when you're teaching and you're like having a nervous breakdown because the lesson is going bad, you can't be like, I'm going for a run. That's not going to work in the moment. And I don't know about you, but everybody's talking about breathing these days. Every breathe, take a deep breath, take a breath. I'm like, I'm breathing, and I'm still annoyed with you. And so sometimes the breath isn't sufficient. We all need different strategies too, don't we? Like, not everything works for everybody. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm an introvert. People think of me as outgoing. I don't even like people. But I mean, I have to work with people, but my point is I'm shy. Um, and so the Zoom thing works for me because I'm like, I can just do whatever I want to do. I don't have to talk to anybody. Um, but when I'm regulating, like for example, after this is over, the last thing I'm gonna want to do is like hang out with people. I'm gonna want to be like by myself or just kind of reflect a little bit, go do some stretching or something like that. Other people might need more action-oriented strategies. Does this resonate with you? That there's no like correct or incorrect when it comes to emotion regulation? It's more of a journey and a discovery process. And so I only share that with you up front because so much of our education system is like there's a correct way. Like I'm a martial artist, that's my other career. And like there is a very correct way to do, one of these fancy punches, right? Like you got to have your fist a certain way, the knuckles have to be a certain way, your wrist has got to be a certain way, your elbow's got to be a certain way. There's a correct strategy. That doesn't work for your mental health. It doesn't work there's no one saying that's going to be the cure all for everybody. And so that means that oftentimes the work in social and emotional learning and emotional intelligence is more challenging for people to teach. Okay. By the way, that's the cheat sheet. So people were like, no, you just don't show the colors. You got to get the words. You're right. So this is the cheat sheet. This is from the inside cover of my book. Give you the first 100 words. As you can see, there's peeved and there's enraged. There's apathetic and despaired. There's at ease and there's complacent. There's pleasant. There's focused. There's upbeat. There's ecstatic. There's elated. There are lots of nuances in our emotion vocabulary. So the question now is, all of you shared how you're feeling. How's the world feeling? So this is a study that we did with children across America. As you can see, they're doing fabulously. No, I shouldn't say that. They're frustrated. Frustrated, number one word, bored, anxious, sad, angry. Quick question. Resonate with you? If you're a parent or you're working with kids, does this look like a lot of the emotions that you're noticing in your children? Okay. Educators. We studied educators throughout our work. In March, we asked 6,000 educators. Anxiety was the number one. In July, we asked again, how are you feeling? Anxious, even anticipating anxious. But I think this is really important. That when we ask people not how they feel, but how they want to feel, the number one emotion right now is appreciated. I find that to be really interesting. Does this resonate with anybody about this like need? What do you think about the word appreciated? Valued, supported, calm. I know in the work that I do with schools, like teachers feel like the parents hate me, like the school is crazy, the school board this, and it's just endless, like, because of the negativity bias that we have, unfortunately. We're always looking for what's wrong, which means that what I'm doing is not right, which means you're not going to appreciate me. So, as you can imagine, we got a lot of red and blue in our nation. When we ask people, well, how do you want to feel? They say yellow and green. And I wonder if that's realistic right now. To be honest with you, if you ask me how I'm really feeling, I've been anxious for the last 10 months. There's so much uncertainty. I run a large group of people from my kitchen counter. It's like the weirdest thing to run an organization from your kitchen and not having seen any of the people on my leadership team or that I work with for a year. And so one question is like, what's the goal? What do we do with these feelings? And so the center that I have the privilege of founding and directing is our goal is to use the power of emotions to create a healthier and more equitable, innovative, and compassionate society. I'm going to argue today, and obviously forever, that it starts with this basic concept. And so I ask all of you, when you think about this principle or idea, permission to feel, what does it make you think about? What's a word or two that you would use to describe that concept for yourself? What does it make you think about? Who is someone who's giving permission? I really like that. Freedom, mindfulness, safe space, letting go. Can I get five? 5 words? Sure. Step away from yourself, no judgment. It can be scary. You want me to be honest with how I'm feeling? About you? Think about that. I think that so many people go through life never actually sharing how they truly feel about their partners, about their friends, their brothers and sisters. Validation. It's okay not to be okay. It's lonely. You're right. When you're feeling something no one else is feeling at that time. And many times we don't even know how other people are feeling because they're not telling us the truth. Has anyone here ever masked their true feelings? We do it all the time, don't we? It's called emotional labor. I'm fine. I'm fine. No, I'm fine. When on deep inside, you're feeling something else. So in the spirit of just you getting to know me a little bit more, I grew up in northern New Jersey, as you can tell from my hair. Just kidding. And I had a tough childhood. I was abused as a kid by a neighbor that was pretty horrific, starting at 5 years old. And I was threatened by that adult to not share what was happening to me, or I would be harmed, or my family would be harmed, actually. And I only tell you that because I was trapped with my feelings. The reason why I called my book Permission to Feel was that I feel like I was robbed of my emotions as a kid. I had to suppress those feelings that I was having, the disgust, the fear, the anger. And they went somewhere, right? They went to an eating disorder. They went to self-hatred. They went to crying fits and yelling and defiance. And my parents, I knew, loved me, but they had some of their own challenges to deal with. My mother had terrible anxiety and she was always having a nervous breakdown. Don't tell me what's happening. I'll have a nervous breakdown. That's what she used to tell me when I was in elementary school. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm having a breakdown, Mom. I didn't say that then. And my father was a tough guy from New York City who, toughen up, son. You got to toughen up. You should all know this. I have a 5th degree black belt. I became a martial arts instructor. And I am still not a tough guy. And so I was blessed, however, that my mother's brother, by some wave of a magic wand, was writing a curriculum to teach kids about their feelings through social studies. Go figure. And he was getting a master's degree in the town where I grew up, and he'd stay with us on the weekends in the summers. And he sat with me in the backyard. And like Rosemary did in the beginning, he was the only adult in my life who said, Marc, how are you feeling? And he paused and he listened. And somehow or another, his facial expression, body language, and vocal tone was so welcoming that I shared everything that was happening to me. And then he didn't say, get some grit, kid. He said, let's get through this together. And it changed my life. It gave me a career. And over the years, I've been asking people about those relationships. Do you have that Uncle Marvin? So I ask all of you right now, when you were young, was there that one adult who was just these things for you? Compassionate, empathic, non-judgmental, supportive, validating, caring. Who was that person? Some people don't have that person. A lot of people don't. When I was on my book tour, I had this really cool experience. I got to talk with Jane Fonda. All of you know who that is, the actress. And she's like, Marc, permission to feel. I didn't have my mother had serious mental health problems. My father was a narcissist, and all I had was books. I just hid in my room and read. Now, here's one thing. I'm just going to say it. You can be your own Uncle Marvin to yourself too. So my question for all of you is, during the pandemic over the last year, have you been self-compassionate, self-empathic, non-judgmental for yourself, validating yourself? So this sometimes makes people uncomfortable, right? People aren't necessarily prepared to be so vulnerable, right? To talk about their emotions, to share some of their darkest secrets. I'll be honest, as a psychologist and person who's written curriculum in this space for 25 years, I wasn't comfortable sharing my own true story until I was 50. I decided, because I kept oh, why do you do this work, Marc? Why do you do this work? And I'd say things like, because I was bullied, which was bullied in school, because I hated school. But the real reason was what I share with you, that I was robbed of my emotions. I was robbed of talking about my feelings to anybody. And I didn't have that permission to feel. And I know the consequences of that as a scientist now. But importantly, not everybody's ready for that. And we have to be compassionate to those people too. And I think it's important for us to understand that there's a science behind this work. That I'm not here to share my opinions. What I'm here to do is share with you a rigorous science that proves that emotions matter. And there are 5 really important reasons. The first is attention, memory, and learning. How you feel drives your attentional capacity. When you are like I was, in fear mode from abuse, from bullying, you're not in learning mode. I was a C&D student as a kid. I mean, look at me. It's pretty clear. I'm really smart. But I'm joking, obviously. I am pretty smart. but I couldn't perform academically. I couldn't focus in school. I'm worried about survival. Who cares about the Roman oligarchy? Decision making. Anyone here make a bad decision over the last couple of months? Come on. Am I alone? Like ate something you didn't really want to eat, said something to somebody you didn't really want to say. Yeah. So we know that emotions drive our attention, our decision making. Here's an example. In a study we did with teachers, we randomly assigned them to be in a good mood or a bad mood. And we asked them to grade papers. Do you know there was a full grade difference in the evaluation of the student just based on the mood the teacher was in? When we asked them, do you believe that how you felt had any influence over the grade? 90% denied it. So why is that? It's because our emotions oftentimes leak into our judgments, but that happens outside of our conscious awareness. Physical and mental health. Has anyone here ever worked in an organization or in an office space that was like the climate was toxic or unhealthy? Anyone ever had that experience? Like just the energy was just off. And how many of you, when you woke up in the morning working in that organization, said to yourself, oh gosh, I can't wait to go to work today? Thank you, Casey. You would get physically sick. Exactly. So environments have emotions too, don't they? And those environments affect our individual emotions, which affect our physical and our mental health. Performance and creativity. Anyone here ever know someone who you just thought had all the talent, all the skill, all the academic prowess to be successful, but they just couldn't get out of their own way? Why is that? It's because if you can't deal with your feelings, oftentimes you can't achieve your dreams. The frustration, the anxiety, the disappointment, the overwhelm, the feedback. If you don't have the skills and the strategies, what happens? It's hard to achieve. This is why I push everybody to think about this concept. Are you an emotion scientist? Or are you an emotion judge? So really think about that for a minute. Are you open and curious and reflective? Or are you closed and critical? When you fail, anybody here engage in self-criticism over the last couple of months? Anyone ever do that? I'm supposed to be like an expert in this stuff. I'm like, Marc, you know, every strategy that's ever been written about emotion regulation. You've read all these books, you've written a book. Use your strategy. So I'm gonna like, Marc, this is gonna be it. You're gonna work out and you're gonna be like pumped and you're gonna be positive. I go down to work out a couple of weeks ago. I'm wearing shorts. I look at my legs. I'm like, ugh, you look like Elmer's glue. And I'm doing my crunches and I'm like, ugh, your stomach is never gonna be this. And I'm like, but wait a minute, I made a commitment to being positive. And within the first 5 minutes of being awake, I beat myself up, like Ramona says. And I'm like, my goodness. And I start thinking about that a lot because I don't know about you, but because of my childhood experience and the bullying I experienced and the negativity, I've had 50 years of rehearsal of all that stuff, right? Like it doesn't take a lot of effort for me to be critical about my weight, about my nose, about my sexual orientation, about my height, about whatever. I could just like trash myself. I can go up and down my body, inside, outside my mind, and just completely criticize myself from the morning I wake up, and then from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. And then I think about this idea of having a growth mindset and being self-compassionate. And I'm like, I don't have that area of my brain filled very much. Does this resonate with people? For some reason, we have a lot of time, and it doesn't take any effort to grow the negative, but it takes a tremendous amount of effort and time to grow the positive. And so let me ask you another question. How many of you believe that you grew up in families, you went to schools where you were asked throughout your elementary, middle, and high school years to evaluate your self-talk for self-criticism and be taught creative ways to engage in self-compassion? What do you think? Never, no, never asked, never happened, never, not at all, never, never, never. And so we wonder, why when the pandemic hit, we were so distraught, why so many of us just crumbled, told to shut up and get on with the program, right? I think the other problem that we have in our country is that it's like, you got to be happy all the time, right? If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Not if you're content and you have purpose and meaning, clap your hands. Different framework, right? But like this whole thing that we got to be happy all the time. There are more books on happiness than there are people on this webinar. And it's a problem because if you're told that the goal is to always be happy, but you're not there, what do you feel? Chronic disappointment. And so when people ask me, Mark, how are you feeling? I say, I've been anxious, but I'm trying to not allow that anxiety to have power over me. I'm not going to deny myself the anxiety. There's a lot of uncertainty. And Brenda, yes, mindfulness is a big piece of it. And do you know that people who strive to be happy all the time often feel worse? Because unrealistic expectation. The other thing is we have to learn that these skills are not soft skills. Even companies talk about them as soft skills. That term makes me crazy. These are real, quote unquote, hard life skills. So in schools, I think we have to work on changing the reward system, right? All I see is students at my university, perfect SAT scores, perfect grades. But do they know how to get along? Do they know how to take feedback well? Can they have a difficult conversation? Not really. And so what's interesting is that when we've interviewed companies, 30 to 40% of jobs are saying require these social and emotional learning skills, but only about 40% of employers believe new graduates are prepared. So that leads me to the skills of emotional intelligence, las habilidades. We call them the ruler skills. Recognizing emotion, face, body, voice. Understanding where those feelings come from. Labeling emotions, having the words to describe them accurately. Knowing how and when to express them. Having the skills to regulate them. Now, I want to say something up front that most people think of these as individual skills, like Rosemary, read emotions better. Casey, you got to regulate better. I want to get us away from that thinking. The systems that we are living in and the systems that children are growing up in have to be emotionally intelligent systems. It's not about the individual. It's about the system that's supporting the development of the individual. And right now, I don't believe everyone has equal permission to feel in our society. So by way of example, a good friend of mine, his name is Mike. He's a Black professor at Yale. I'm a white professor. The rules are different for Mike and Marc. He doesn't have the same permission to express anger like I do. His expression of anger is seen as being a different form of anger than my anger. And so this is how the equity gets involved in the teaching of emotional intelligence. Because until society recognizes that everybody has equal permission to express the same emotions, then we're not doing the job. We're not doing the work. It's not the job of Mike to downregulate his anger to fit into society. That doesn't make any sense. That's called racism. And so when we talk about the skills of emotional intelligence, we're talking about the role of culture in the development of these skills, the role of culture in the way we approach the teaching of these skills. So for example, my martial art is from Korea. I've gone to Korea like a dozen times. Eye contact is different in Korea. People just have a different way of communicating. I'm from, the East Coast. It's like, look at me when I speak to you. Look at me when I speak to you. Look at me when I speak to you. Right? That's the way you grew up, right? At least that's the way I grew up. Like, look at me in the eyes when you speak to me. If I went to Korea and did that, it would be like Freakville, right? That is just not the way they operate. Who's right? There is no right. This is the challenge here. There's no right or wrong. There's no correct or incorrect. It's about being that curious, compassionate emotion scientist. Always. Okay. Now you get your test of emotional intelligence. Fear, anxiety, stress, overwhelm. Fear, anxiety, stress, overwhelm. No difference. Come on, Shannon, it's not a trick question. Fear, anxiety, stress, overwhelm. How about this? I will give away a free signed book to the person who gets it right. Anyone willing to take the bet? You got to give me definitions. Fear means this, anxiety means this, stress means this, overwhelm means that. So Marcia is saying these inside-outside conditions. That's very interesting. All release cortisol, but in different cause and effect. Okay, perception. Fear, thinking negative consequences. So you're all telling me like one's more, one's less, but what's the psychological difference? All right, I'm going to tell you. Oh, no, I'm not. I thought I put it in there. I got to tell you by telling you. Fear, impending danger. Right? When you feel fear, it's like it's like you're home and all of a sudden the door opens. You're like, I wasn't expecting that. Impending danger. Anxiety, uncertainty. Stephanie, I think I'm going to give you the book. I think you got it, Stephanie. You got 95%. It's an A. It's an A. So you're going to get it. So Stephanie, would you please send Rosemary your information, your address, so I can get it to you? Fear, pending danger, anxiety, uncertainty, stress, too many demands, and I just can't do it. Overwhelmed is you are overcome with emotion. Like you feel buried. You feel like you have no freedom. Now, big question for all of you. Does it matter? Like, why would all of us care? Why would we care? Why does it matter? Why am I asking you to do this? Because our response is different, Paulina. Exactly. Or I make everybody, Paulina, I make everybody either Italian or Spanish, sorry. So it matters because the strategies are going to be different. Managing anxiety about uncertainty is really different than dealing with being overwhelmed. I'm going to share with you, for years, here I am, a professor of emotional intelligence. I never really got that granular with my own emotions. I was going up for tenure back about 10 years ago. I went to the doctors. And I was like, I'm having a breakdown. That was my mother speaking, by the way. I learned from my mother good stuff. And the doctor said, well, this is what happens when you go up for tenure. So like, here's your Prilosec for your heartburn, and here's the Ativan for your anxiety. I'm like, thank you. Thank you very much for your support. And I left there. I was PISSED, and I took a walk, and I'm like, all right, what is going on here? Am I stressed? Too many demands, not enough resources. Nah, I'm pretty resilient. Okay. Am I anxious? I don't know. I worked hard. I got all the requirements. Not really. Oh yeah. I'm overwhelmed. I'm working 18 hours a day. I'm giving myself no breaks. Huh. So scheduling the extra mindfulness class and doing the yoga class from 8 to 9 p.m. Maybe I need to not do the yoga class from 8 to 9, or maybe I need to give myself a break and not do emails from 10 to 11 p.m. I needed to just take stuff off my plate. And when I started realizing that the only thing that was going to help me be less overwhelmed was to do less, it was eye-opening. So you got to name it to tame it, everybody. By the way, we did research with supervisors who are high and low in emotional intelligence. And look at this. You work for a supervisor who's more emotionally intelligent, you're more likely to learn new things. You're less likely to leave your job. You're satisfied with your job more, less burnout, more engagement, less fear of speaking up, and it's more ethical. So I think, are we ready to take questions? Do you think it's about time, or should we go a little further? Keep going?
Keep going.
Keep going. That's it. We're going till tomorrow. So healthy emotion regulation. The name of my book is Permission to Feel. Thank you for asking. So you can just go to my website, which is marcbrackett.com, and you'll learn all about our work and resources. So first step, permission to feel. Acceptance. No such thing as a good or bad emotion. Think about that. No such thing as a good or bad emotion. Huh. Second step, physiological regulation. Why is that? Because when you're activated, you can't use the cognitive strategies. If you're a parent and your kid is having a complete, flipping out, you can't be like, just say something positive to yourself. It just doesn't work. You can't even do it for yourself. That's why we have to learn how to deactivate. That's the breathing exercises, the taking a little bit of a walk, giving yourself some space. As all of you probably know, there are biological things that influence your regulation. You don't get enough sleep, your threshold is smaller. You don't eat the right amount of carbs each day, you don't have the glucose that you need to problem solve and to regulate. You don't exercise, you don't get that little endorphin push, which makes life easier. Literally, random controlled experiment. Exercise, no exercise. Someone comes in and tries to trigger you, you're less likely to get activated if you've exercised. So literally, taking care of your body and mind physically helps you to regulate better. Taking time to be still. What does that mean exactly? Yeah, you got to eat the carbs. Unless you're like in ketosis, which is like really hard to do, you got to be in the carbs, because glucose is the only thing that keeps your brain pumping, and our brains don't produce it. Psychological self-care. One of my friends who's a professor at Berkeley, he does all these studies on taking an awe walk, AWE. Like go outside for 10 minutes and just look at the sky, look at the ground. whatever you got in front of you. Look at the molding in the building. Look at the cracks in the cement. And just give yourself time to just be free of thinking about things. What's interesting about that also is that our creativity comes out when we do these things. A lot of my students are like, I have to pull an all-nighter to try to come up with a topic. I tell them, put your freaking computer away and go for a walk. I never noticed that. When I was writing my book, actually, I had this really difficult time because every time I'd go to yoga, I would get an idea. And right, because I'd be like in like Warrior 2, and I'm like, oh my God, I just realized that's the thing I want to write about. And I literally, I'm telling you something that I haven't told anybody. I literally had to talk to my yoga teacher and say, like, you're going to see something really weird, but like, I have a pen and pencil next to my mat. And I apologize. I don't know. I haven't done it since. But when I was in this writing mode and I would just like get stuck, I'd go to yoga. Boom. That's when the idea came. Taking a shower, on a walk. Social connection. Let me share with you one thing that I just learned very recently. People who are chronically disconnected and lonely, on average, live 10 years fewer years. It's a decade off your life by being lonely and disconnected. So just think about that for yourself. Think about that for the people that you care and love. Self-talk, we talked a little bit about that earlier. I'm convinced that our negative self-talk starts really early. Really early. And I'm convinced that it occurs from other people defining our realities for us. Think about that. When kids are making it, when you're at home or you're at school, the playground, on the bus, whatever it is, you're too this, you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're too tall, you're too short, you're too dark, you're too light, your nose is too big, your nose is too small, the list goes on. We don't have the interventions. The negative talk metastasizes. It becomes our automatic go-to strategy. The positive self-talk, we don't practice it. We don't rehearse it. It's not available to us when we're in that crisis mode. So much of the work for us as adults is unlearning and relearning. And then finally, routines, right? Setting yourself up for success. So I've been doing a lot of talking, and I think it's time to take a breath. Someone asked us all to take a nice long inhale and a nice long exhale. Nice long inhale and an exhale. One of my favorite exercises I learned 35 years ago. And it's a simple mantra to help you kind of just deactivate and be still. And so we're going to try it together just to kind of bring our energy to a quiet close to ask some questions. And the way it works is we say the word in on the inhale, and then we just say the word out on the exhale. And then we say the word deep, and then we say the word slow. I want to help you through this. And then we say the word calm, and then ease, and then we smile, and we release. So here we go together. In and out and deep and slow. On the inhale, say the word calm. On the exhale, say ease. Can you put a little gentle smile on your face as you inhale? And then exhale, release. We're gonna do it one more time. In and out and deep, slow, calm, and ease. Put a smile on your face and release. So can I ask all of you to take a moment and just type in, how are you feeling now? How does it feel to just be still and breathe for just 2 minutes? It's amazing, isn't it? A little refreshing, calming, whole, relaxed, focused. What I'd like to do is just jump to sharing with you what this work looks like in an organization. And then we'll take some questions. Sound good? So Ruler is the name of the approach to social and emotional learning that you heard Rosemary when she introduced me. One of the things that we try to focus on is moving away from piecemeal approaches, rules and assemblies and kits, to more systemic thinking. Get rid of that quick fix mentality, right? The train and hope model. Anybody used to that? Like it's like this workshop and then it's like, go. And then there's no follow through. We also focus on little things a lot, right? Like only mindfulness. But maybe I can't use mindfulness during this presentation because I've got to actually keep talking and I'm having a nervous breakdown. And what do I do about it? Or we kind of this fragmented. I was in a school recently, and the leader or the principal of the school said to me, "We do everything." I'm like, wow, that's impressive. Everybody does I statements. We've learned about grit. We've learned about mindfulness. We've learned about restorative practices. We've learned about SEL. We've learned about, I don't know, sure, I couldn't even list all the things. And I was like, that's interesting. What's your implementation model? I didn't say it, but I wanted to say it. And so like, you can't, like that doesn't, it's just overwhelming for people, right? And so you need systems. We got to think like preventionists, not just interventionists. So much of the work in this space is about intervening when things have gone wrong, as opposed to thinking, oh, teaching kids emotion vocabulary words and strategies to help them regulate throughout their development can be helpful. That's interesting. In a school setting, it's got to be balanced with the curriculum. Like you can't just dedicate Thursdays at 3 o'clock to teaching about feelings, right? You got to do it in all areas and have specific time for it. Got to look at our policies. Are they outdated? Are they harming children? Like I said earlier, not everyone has equal permission to feel. So within our work, and I would say that any intervention that you work with in a school-based setting needs a theory of change. Who are your stakeholders? What are they getting? What are your goals? The goals of our work are to get people to have a more enhanced emotion matters mindset, to deepen their skills, to recognize that you got to focus on the culture and climate, and to make sure that you're infusing this into the pedagogy, the practices, and the policies. So from a model standpoint, it looks like this. We do adults first, then kids, with families and outside of school time, like after school programming and camps. There's curriculum to really build the skills from all the way from preschool to high school and changes across development. There are tools like the charter. How do you want to feel? Not just how you're feeling, but how do you want to feel? You can do this in a company, you can do this in a classroom, you can do this in a school, you can do this at a playground. Building that vocabulary with the mood meter. So many ways to use the mood meter, from arts classes to kids building mood meters for their families, to having a day of just activities and fun. We actually have an app called the Mood Meter app to help people build the knowledge and skills that they need. Tools like we call the meta moment. which is to manage those difficult times where you sense the trigger, you pause, see your best self. And actually, we're going to do a little exercise on that right now. As we wrap up our time together, I'm going to ask you to take a moment and think about your best self. So, what are 2 adjectives that you would use to describe your best self? I see myself as someone who has these qualities. Kind and inspiring. Nice. That was quick, Casey. I like that. Patient and kind. Determined, brave and loving. What if I were to ask you how you'd like to be seen and talked about and experienced? Would something else come up for you? Another word? Your reputation? Listener, compassionate. Teacher and a healer. Compassionate and giving. A mentor. If you had to pick one, what would it be? What's your one adjective? Compassionate. Empathic, inspiring. Nice. So tonight, when you log off this webinar and your dog or your partner or your kid or your boss, like something goes wrong, can you pause, take a breath, and say, oh, wait a minute. I'm patient, kind, generous, compassionate, inspiring, empathic. Oh, how does that person respond as opposed to the person who's been activated respond? Because when we're activated, we go to those habitual patterns that are in our brain from our history. But when we take the meta moment, we pause, we breathe, and we activate that best self that helps us choose a response that's more helpful. Other tools like the blueprint for problem solving, for perspective taking, for building empathy, for restoring our practices. So I'm going to wrap up by saying a few last things. One, we've done tons of research on this, and it really does make a difference, from teachers to students to classrooms and schools. We do have a course. Actually, every teacher in Rhode Island has been given the privilege of taking this course for free with a certificate. It's also available to a broader audience. And I'll be giving you this code so you can, if you're interested in taking that course, you can. And so let's wrap up our time together. 1, some ideas. Look at your routines. Are they working for you or against you? Going back to what I said earlier, can you be that preventionist? Be aware of your emotional contagion. A stressed out teacher is a stressed out classroom, a stressed out coach is a stressed out team, a stressed out parent is a stressed out family. Think about being that Uncle Marvin. Just your mere presence is a strategy. We know that during these very difficult times, especially right now, we engage in a lot of empathy, but there's something called positive empathy. It's the empathy that reminds us to embellish some of the good things that are happening, that shows the appreciation as our teachers want to feel. Maybe you can be the first to initiate joy, apologize, and forgive. And maybe you can activate that best self that you were talking about earlier. Here are some of the adjectives that other people have used. Shelton, Connecticut, that's where my colleague lives, actually. So my last slide, my hope for all of you. Got to give yourself the permission to feel. You got to become the emotion scientist, not the judge. Just remember, this is about using our feelings wisely, not about controlling them. Appreciate that developing these skills can be harder than learning the traditional hard skills. Try to be that role model. You got to focus on not the individual, but the system. And remember, as I said over and over again, I feel like I have like a broken record about this, which is, oftentimes when I do presentations and I share my story about people, and people say, well, but Marc, like you made it, you're successful. I say, well, yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. But like, are you aware of all the interventions and supports, And so, God bless my parents for getting me a therapist when I disclosed my abuse. B, God bless Uncle Marvin. God Almighty, like, think about that. Having someone like that as your mentor, as your hero, as your savior. Got involved in the martial arts. Spent years studying the martial arts. Gave me confidence and focus. Got to go to college. Got to get a doctorate in psychology. Spent 25 years of my life writing curriculum, teaching emotional intelligence. So my goodness, if I don't got these skills, nobody will get them. But when I walk around in traditional times in schools, for example, we're working with 500 New York City schools, 300 schools in Connecticut, now dozens in Rhode Island. And I walk into a classroom or I go into a home and I look at a kid. I think, are you going to have all those opportunities in life? Is someone watching your back to make sure you get the emotional intelligence skills that you need to achieve your dreams? And we're not there yet. We're just not there yet. And so I want to end by saying, I think it's our moral obligation to ensure that everyone gets this emotion education. And I also think it's our moral obligation to be the best possible role models, right, for kids. And so on that note, I just want to say thank you, Rosemary, for inviting me into the ASHA family and team. And I'm learning from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, right? Fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. And so on that note, I just want to say thank you. And I am ready to take questions. If we don't have to hang up, I might have gone over now.
No, we have time, and thank you. I feel like, like I wish everybody we could stand up together to give you your applause. I always feel weird in these squares, and like nobody puts baby in a box or in a corner. That's how I feel in these things, but I really do appreciate the time and you coming to spend with everyone. This has been amazing. I love my new label of emotion scientist. I embrace that, and thank you for crowning me with that today. That is really good. I like that a lot. So many things that I enjoyed. And as I can see the chat box lighting up, I am not alone in that sentiment. I thank you, Rosemary, for this connection being made. I love connections. So I appreciate you for this as well.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate you. And of course, Marc.
Thank you, Rosemary. It was real fun.
Absolutely. Okay. So let's see. Can we please review the distinction between fear, anxiety, stressed, and overwhelmed?
Anyone want to take a stab at it?
I'm gonna lob to Rosemary since I'm going back in the chat.
Can Tajuana join us by voice or no? Can we do that?
Can we? Let's see. Is your hand up, Tajuana? Will you raise your hand?
I've got it.
Okay,
Tajuana,
thank you,
you should
Caitlin.
be able to unmute now.
Can you hear us, Tajuana?
Here we go. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me. Yes, I would like to explain it because I actually send motivational stuff to my family all the time. And I tell them about anxiety. So I know with anxiety, I always tell them, think it too far. And, fear is thinking, I think if I can remember this, I'm sorry, I'm a little anxious.
Don't worry about
Fear
it.
is the uncertainty, like things that may be a threat or something to you, creates fear. I know anxiety is thinking too far ahead, if I'm correct. Thinking too far ahead. And I think the other one was overwhelming. What said it? Stress. Yes, stress is, I believe, if I can remember, stress is over things we are unsure about. Is that correct?
That's a little bit more anxiety.
I mean, anxiety. Okay, I'm trying here.
Good.
Um,
Right. Stress is when you have like,
too many things
exactly.
going on, right? Stress, and I should know that because I have been stressing unknowingly, not paying attention.
You
So
don't have enough
stress,
resources, remember?
going on, and then overwhelmment is taking on too many things and being overwhelmed by too many obligations, for example, taking on more than you can probably handle. And
Exactly right.
I think that's it.
So fear, feeling threatened or danger, anxiety, uncertainty,
Mhm.
stress, too many demands, and just not enough resources, and overwhelmed. Like, oh, I can't get out from under all this.
Yes.
Perfect.
So that's what I think it is. Thank
Somebody thinks that
you.
you should get a book too. So like,
I
whatever.
appreciate that. Yay.
So
I
you
love
can send in
that.
your information to. I'm going to go broke from this presentation, but anyway.
Thank
Tawana,
you.
please put your mailing address into all panelists. If you'll just send it to all panelists, we'll make sure that Marc gets it.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for contributing. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Someone brought up earlier, Marc, about, having that someone or having that trusting adult. But what if that trusting adult is someone who, turns out to be an abuser or someone, that manipulation, this happens often. So what's the comeback from that or the approach? Or what's just your thoughts on that?
It's difficult. And so, this is why, if you're learning these skills, let's say in school, and you become that emotion scientist, you start realizing, my goodness, I'm being manipulated. And so, a lot of strategies can be, unhelpful, even the one like reappraisal, which is a very popular emotion management strategy. Let me look at this from a different perspective. But if your abuser or adult is saying something like, oh, Casey, you're just too sensitive. Like, no, you're actually being mean to me, And so like, this is why it's so important for us to like build these skills over time so that we can be listening and realizing that people are either being kind or cruel. And so that's one example. I think the other is, the research shows you just need one of those Uncle Marvins, but if you realize that your Uncle Marvin is not really the true Uncle Marvin, then you've got to look for the other one. And so it's just, I think that, part of growing older is finding those trusted adults. Even as I'm getting older now, I'm like, who's going to take care of me? Not quite, but it's important to have multiple trusted adults. It really will make life better.
Agreed. And thank you for sharing that. Discernment coming with the growth in your emotion scientist journey. So I appreciate that. There was a mention earlier in talking about your different experiences, your colleague, and your experiences. When we look at even in just trying to get this curriculum or these principles and strategies and ways of thinking and being out into schools, you mentioned also, you alluded to when thinking about eye contact in this culture versus Korean culture. We have these implicit biases, right? That some acknowledge, don't know exist, do know exist, all these different things, right? So how do you recommend that we like address these during implementation of these types of strategies, or where does it play a role or come into play at all?
It comes in a major play because our identities are always with us. And that means our cultural identity, our racial identity, our unconscious, people always say, like for myself, like I grew up with, I think, I grew up in a very, I never heard profanities growing up about race in my family. However, the other day I was just flipping through TV on the weekend and I was looking at these old 1980s movies and I could not believe how racist they were. Hollywood was, it was pure racism. And I realized I absorbed all of that as a kid. I laughed at those things, and I was not even conscious of it. And so I'm certainly not, that's why it's called an unconscious bias. And so, but the point I think is that, so for example, and this is why I think science is so important for this. We know from research that people who are white, which is the majority, at least at right now in the United States, they're more accurate at reading other white people's facial expressions, and they tend to project stereotypes onto Black people's facial expressions. And so they will over-identify anger, for example, in a neutral Black person's face expression. So like, now that I know that information, right, I'm like, I've been taught that, the science shows me, Mark, because of your white background, you are going to be more likely to project a negative emotion, or you could be, not that you are, but you could be. What I'm going to say to people is that you've got to put a pause button on before you make the attribution, right? So you got to do extra work to find out how the person is actually feeling, because you're going to be more likely to make an attribution as opposed to really understand. And so I just think those are the kinds of things that we have to like make sure that we're teaching our educators, because it's going to help them pause, it's going to help them reflect, and it's going to help them. Let me say this also, the goal is not to always be right. I think the goal is to make a lot fewer mistakes. And by not checking in with our biases, by not checking in with the person, like Casey, like, I'm unclear, how are you feeling? Instead of me making an assumption about how you're feeling. And we just do this a lot in our culture. We project, we make attributions instead of really learning and knowing. So the emotion scientist says, hold off, Mark, you might be making that up about that person, find out.
No, that's good. I appreciate that. I'm going to put up my screen as I ask my last question about your thoughts. Short answer. I hate to cut you off. I wish we could stay till 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. tonight. So I'm going to share my screen as you answer the question. How do we sustain this? We have SEL as a talk on a lot of people's minds and conversations and decision-making rooms right now. But how do we sustain this post-COVID?
Well, the question is, I need to learn more about your organizations and how you work with different groups. But I think that for right now, I think everyone should just be in learner mode to build their own skills. We jump to implementation.
There you go.
We jump to implementation without building our own skills first. So the good news is that you got time to read, you got time to learn, time to practice. And then, my hunch is that many of our people on this webinar work in schools. Yep. And so talk to your principal, talk to your superintendent, get them to understand the rigorous kind of approaches to social and emotional learning versus the hodgepodgey piecemeal toolkits, and try to educate, people that, if we're not doing the systemic work, we're not doing the work.
That's the part. I appreciate. I have a public health background and have gone. I know policy moves the needle in big ways, but some grassroots is where we need to start right now. We are like,
you can have all the policy in the world, but nobody's implementing.
That part. No, absolutely. Thank you again for your time today and for your amazing content and your personality and your spirit. I thank you for just joining us and sharing with us. Rosemary, I thank you again for this connection being made. And for everyone who is still around, I thank you for coming and being here. And yes, you earned your continuing education for being here. So thank you for continuing your education with us. Right after we close out the webinar, you're going to get the survey. If you have a few minutes to go ahead and complete it on the the spot, great. Please do so. That's how you get your certificate. And if not, it'll still be coming to you in a link following up, the follow-up email. So you'll be able to complete it later, and then you'll get your certificate as well. And then, of course, this is recorded. So this will be in the library available as a resource for those who were not able to attend today, or for those who may not have been able to attend the full session. And I would be remiss if I did not remind you, as I started off this day, and reminding you that we have moved our conference to July 19th, 20th, 21st. There are invited presentations we have lined up and are lining up some amazing presenters for you all. But we have our call for posters that are open. So abstracts, please submit them. That call closes on May 3rd. So you have time to get that in. If you have some wonderful teaching techniques you want to share, some research you want to share, some community practice models, some other professional development skills and tools that you would want to share with others from around the country and the world. We actually have folks that join us internationally. So please, please just save the date. Get ready for registration to open here in the coming month. If you have any questions about anything, technical issues, or just if you have any issues going through all of the survey to get your CEs or anything like that, please reach out to us. That's our website. Take a look at some other resources we have available to you, and give us a call if you have any questions or need anything. Again, thank you all for joining us today. Amazing and engaged audience. I appreciate that participation. I love that. I know presenters enjoy that too. Thank you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Be well, everyone. We appreciate you. Bye.